to start things off, do you mind introducing yourself, giving your name, your sport, and the university that you attended?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Quinton Davis. Played baseball and the university that I attended. So actually, with me, I actually attended four colleges out of high school. I went to Jackson State University over in Mississippi, and then from there transferred to a community college in Western Maryland called Allegheny College in Maryland. From there, transferred over to Community College of Baltimore County in Dundalk, and then transferred from there to my current school in Southern California called La Sierra University. So I've kind of been pretty much all around the country, Midwest, East, West, like pretty much all of that. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
Looking back at your journey as a student athlete, how would you say that shaped you personally and athletically, especially relating to the transfers going across the country from like year to year?
Probably one of the biggest things that it kind of helped with me is building a leader out of me. So I'd say like when I came into college, I wasn't necessarily as much of a leader, you know what I mean? But it's like from the freshman year, kind of just like taking notes from like the people who led the teams that the respective teams that I was on, to getting to a point where I was an upperclassman, where the younger people were starting to look up to me. It's like I was able to kind of take what I learned from the earlier parts of college to kind of apply in my own experience as a leader. It was not a smooth process. I'll definitely say that. But with the bumps and the bruises comes like the lessons and the learning. So that now I would definitely say that I'm at a much better point to lead a group of people than I ever was like in the past. And then you also mentioned the moving all around. I would definitely say that really helped with like the adaptability portion of things, because the way things are done is different from team to team. You know what I mean? So I was kind of able to learn how to adapt to how a certain team is run, from Jackson State to community college, how they run their teams, to the current school I'm at now. And I know that that would be something that would truly help going into life.
Looking back to, I know that in college, you're not only balancing the athletic piece, right, where you're practicing 5, 6, 7 days a week, trying to get those workouts in, making sure you're getting proper nutrition, proper rest, and also having to keep up with your studies. But how specifically were you able to balance and kind of maintain that healthy almost change and dynamic between studying and being a great student and maintaining your GPA, but also being a great athlete and baseball player at the same time?
Josh, I'm sure that you can 100% relate, because with like the transferring all those different schools comes different credits that don't get transferred over. So it's like when I transferred, some credits were transferred over, so I was kind of always overloading. So that also added to the difficulty. To kind of give like a little bit of a microcosm of like what it was kind of like. It's like you would wake up 4 or 5 a.m. You have like morning practice. You have, sorry, morning weights. You got morning practice. Right after that, you got class from like, for me, it was like 1 to 10 p.m. And then after that, it's like homework. Then you got to go to sleep and then do it all over again. That's to say, it's absolutely not easy. It's very, very, very difficult. Sports in college, especially on the baseball end, is pretty much a full-time job along with school. How I was able to kind of fit it in was by taking out other things that weren't necessarily necessary. So what I mean by that, when, my non-athletic friends were doing things like on the weekends, they'd be able to hang out on Saturday nights, they'd be able to hang out on, Fridays and things of that nature. That would be kind of like the time that I have to put in the work to make sure that my grades were at a certain level to where I can still be on the field. And not only just only be on the field, I'm under the mentality that you should always be the best at whatever that you do. So not only just get C's, but you got to make sure to get A's. You know what I mean? So get rid of that type of stuff. Get rid of the video games and things of that nature. Make sure that the priorities are the priorities. And then once you're able to kind of do that, it makes it easier to stay on the field and be the best academic person that you can be, but also find the time to practice and be the best athlete that you can be.
Building off what you just said, like dealing with performance pressure is common across, I would say, all sports, especially when you were trying to be the best player you can possibly be. Like you just stated, you try to be the best person in the classroom as well. How did you manage these pressure situations, and like what would you give for advice to like the next student athlete?
In order to handle like the pressure, right? The number one most important thing is to formulate your mindset and formulate your thoughts around being the absolute best player. If we're talking on like strictly on the field, being the best player absolutely possible when you're under that pressure. So what I mean by that, when getting in those pressure situations, it's very easy for thoughts to kind of get into your head about, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm made for this type of situation. What I'm saying is when those thoughts are tempting to get into your head, you have to kind of stop it right there and immediately replace it with the thought that I'm made for this moment. I raise my game in to meet the demands of the moment. Basically, this is my time. You know what I mean? And I would definitely say that that's something that truly, truly helped. Like in 4 or 5 years playing of college baseball, it's like I've been under a lot of pressure situations. The one that I mean most every athlete goes through is, I have to play well enough to start. I have to play well enough to get the ample playing time. But there's also like the game situations, like if we're just talking baseball, you got guy on second and third, you're down by one. It's the bottom of the ninth inning. You got to make sure that you get the hit to make your team, make the playoffs. It's like those situations definitely happen too. And whenever those situations happen, I always take a deep breath, step out the box, take a deep breath, and be like, this is all me. This is my time. I know I put in the work, I prepare for this. I'm about to come through because I know who I am. You know what I mean? And just having that thought, it gives you the advantage over the pitcher or the person that you're going against. Because it's like, you know who you are and you know what you got going on. I know that was a long way of just answering, or a long way of just saying, replace the negative, self depreciating thoughts with thoughts of extreme confidence. Almost, I would even venture to say almost cocky. You have to be almost cocky to be successful in sports, in my opinion.
I remember too on a bus ride in community college, one of the coaches is like, hey, like visualize yourself in those at bats, right? Those situations before they even happen. Bottom of the ninth inning, 2 outs, you got a full count on you, and runner at third, runner at second. You gotta drive them in. You got to get a hit here, and ultimately you have to be that hero. How are you dealing with that pressure now before it even happens? And then ultimately when that time does come, you're going to be more geared up. You've already lived that moment in your head. So now you can kind of put that into perspective as far as what that's going to be like. Ultimately, too, I know that you had mentioned, hey, I've been to 4 different schools, been on 4 different teams, had to be a student, had to be an athlete, had to maintain academics, had to maintain my athletics, right? So that I'm in the lineup every single day, making a difference, contributing to the team. But ultimately, there's a lot of times different mental hurdles that athletes go through, whether it's burnout, performance anxiety, fear of failure. And ultimately on that aspect, how important do you think mental health awareness is, at the collegiate level, but also just for the individual student athletes?
I think it's really important, and I'm gonna get to that. You did make a point that I did want to touch on a little bit when you came to the visual, when you talked about the visualization thing. I read in like there was like a certain study that the way to build confidence is to continually, repeatedly do something until it becomes like a natural thing. So it's like once you're like visualizing yourself in those situations, it's almost like you're building that in your memory bank, or you're experiencing the necessary experiences that it takes to build the confidence before you actually put yourself in the situation to build the confidence. So in a way, visualization is like a fast track to confidence in a sense. which kind of leads me to your question about the importance of the mental health thing. In my opinion, it's the probably the most important thing when it comes to sports. Mental health, it's like for sure for baseball, but I'm sure for like pretty much any other sport, it's mostly mental, you know? When you get to a certain, so when I was in high school, right? It's like I had the talent. I was a pretty talented individual. A lot of the times you can out talent somebody. Once you get to college, the best player is pretty much the best players from their respective towns that are all coming together. So the talent pool is a little less stagnated. It becomes a little bit more level than it was in the past. And the thing that really separates most players at that level is the mentality, the mental game. Not only from like a confidence level, but it's also from the, as you mentioned, the managing anxiety, the managing stress level, because the person who's able to manage their anxiety and stress in the best way possible is the person that's going to succeed at the collegiate level. To kind of like tie it into somewhat of a short personal story, before college, right? I didn't necessarily have the most knowledge about like the mental game, because I mean it's not necessarily talked about it, at least at that time. It wasn't necessarily talked about as much, right? So I remember going into games, I'd just be like tight. I'd be like, oh, I have to do great. And because of the amount of pressure that I would put on myself, it would hamper my performance to where I'm doing the exact things that I didn't necessarily want to do. Instead of just playing free, instead of just playing easy, like I'm I'm not doing my thing. Kind of going into college, realizing the fact of I put in the preparation, I put in the work. The thing that I really need to focus on is growing my mental game as well, including visualizing, as we talked about, replacing the negative thoughts with more confident thoughts. When I was able to start doing that, it's like everything kind of just started to loosen up. And then that's when I started to see some results on the field. So yeah, the mental game, I really do think that people should take more time and more effort into strengthening and training their mental game just as much as they do with their physical.
Yeah, Quentin, I think that's a great point you brought up. I know me and Josh have spoke about this in the past, especially regarding baseball, that like growing up throughout our playing careers, we were constantly told that baseball is 90% mental and 10% physical. And yet we were never given like the proper ways to handle the mental side of the game, rather than we would just always be practicing, working on the physical aspect of the game. And I think that's really important that you brought it up, and that's definitely something that Josh and I driving force with Fluid Sports Tech. But moving on to the next question, kind of building off of that, can you share like a specific challenge or setback that you experienced at your time as a student athlete and how you overcame it?
So I would say, mention that I transferred a few times, right? So coming out of high school, didn't necessarily have like a ton of offers, right? Went around to different camps in the summer before I went into into college, until Jackson State actually offered me like a little walk-on type position, right? So get my stuff. I'm all excited. I'm from Michigan. I take my stuff, go from Michigan all the way to Mississippi, and I'm like, great, this is where I'm going to spend the rest of my 4 years. This is about to be incredible. And got there, it was an amazing experience. Like the guys on the team, I got along with them pretty well. The school, it's a HBCU in Mississippi. It was a very very nice environment. I'll just say that. So I loved it there. I loved it there, right? In the fall, I actually ended up getting cut from their team, right? And that was a that was kind of a difficult time, just because at that point I was pretty much like a D1 or bust person, right? It's like out of high school, I was like, I need to go D1. And when I finally got the opportunity to go D1, just to have that like taken, it was just like, dang, you had those mental things like, dang, am I really not good enough for this type of stuff? Like, should I even continue? Like, I really do love it here. Like, is it even worth it? You know what I mean? And then after some after some like I'm a religious guy, right? So I was taking some time to pray, look into the Bible, trying to just see like what should be like my next step, right? After like a little bit of time, I was kind of impressed with the option that I should continue playing and find another place to play. Put my name out there, started emailing like a ton of coaches, and I wish I could like show y'all, but I genuinely emailed hundreds of coaches seeing if there was like an opportunity. It finally got to a point where I got picked up by the school in Western Maryland, right? Went to the school in Western Maryland, Allegheny College in Maryland, did pretty decent the first year. And then the second year ended up getting cut again, right? So at this point, I'm like, okay, I just got cut twice in college. I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna just continue to keep doing my thing, continue to keep up with the grind. And if there's no other opportunities, then I'll just take that as a sign that I should just be done. At that point, again, emailed, and I wish I was capping with y'all. 700 coaches, 700 college coaches. Out of all those college coaches, there was one that gave me an opportunity, and it was the college coach in Baltimore. So, this kind of encapsulates like all that we were talking about, like the pressure, like this is like one of my last opportunities. You know what I mean? I got to make sure that I take care of business here, or else I don't know if I'm going to have another opportunity elsewhere. So go there and start out the season actually really, really hot. Like I was like batting over 300 or something like that. I was doing like really, really well to a point where there were different schools like the University of Illinois and things of that nature that were actually reaching out to my coach and trying to see if I could transfer there for my junior year, right? This is sophomore year, by the way. I don't know if I talked about that, but yeah, freshman year, and this is sophomore year right here. As soon as I was really starting to catch fire and like really go crazy, the pandemic happens, and that cuts off everything, every single. And I'm sure that you guys probably know. I know I talked to Josh a little bit about it. Russ, I'm sure that you also know. All recruiting pretty much completely cut off because of the pandemic. So at that point, it was a junior college. So it's not like I couldn't really go back for the following year. And again, I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. Should I still continue? It seems like every single time that I want to continue, something happens to where I can't necessarily continue, right? Again, continue with the mental tools that we talked about. Continue with the praying, fasting, looking into the Bible, things of that nature. At that point, I was like, you know what? This is the last time. This is the absolute last time. I email all the coaches. It was another 700. Out of the other 700, there were 3 schools that were options. And the school that I ended up choosing, it was the school, again, in Southern California. Called the coach. The coach told me, we have 1 spot left, and it happens to be the exact person that was playing your position. So end up going there. And to make a long story short, I had a really solid career over here. A lot of the adversity and things of that nature before that kind of prepared me to where when I got there, I felt like I was so just like solid in my mind because of everything that it took to get to that point, that there was not as much that really phased me. So yeah, came to last year, like I said, to make a long story short, had a pretty solid career, made all conference, won a lot of different awards, and was able to truly figure out how to become a leader. Like at this current school right here, this was where I truly was able to kind of figure out how to truly become a leader. Was able to be put in different situations that truly helped bring that out. So yeah, to kind of encapsulate everything, that was kind of like the how I was able to get through those different types of challenges.